The rain didn't fall anymore, it stabbed Needle. Thin drops hissed as they tore through the ash-choked air, slamming into the battlefield below. Broken machines hissed as their last sparks bled into the mud. Smoke curled like ghosts over corpses, alien and human side by side, their limbs twisted, their armor cracked open like eggshells. Near the edge of a collapsed ridge, something moved. It wasn't much, just a twitch of silver armor, almost completely buried in sludge. One eye flickered open, dim and struggling. It was a female alien warrior, her skin once gold now smeared with black grime, blood, and soot. Her legs were gone, shredded below the knees from a plasma shell. Her breath came in short, uneven gasps, the kind that barely meant survival. She had been left there. Left to die in silence. They had called her Shiraya. In her culture, it meant she who doesn't kneel. Now she was face down in dirt, her body trembling as wind howled over the ridge. Her people had retreated, left the wounded behind, and her squad had marked her as a casualty. To them, it was mercy. No one survived with such damage in the middle of enemy territory. No one came back for half a body, but he did. Boots sank into the muck, heavy, slow, deliberate. A human Marine, young, maybe mid-20s, emerged from the smoke. His armor was dented and dull, one shoulder marked with the fading symbol of a dissolved unit. His helmet was off, tucked beneath his arm, and his face. His face didn't look like someone who belonged in this chaos. His jaw was set, but his eyes, too clear, too alive, were searching. He crouched beside her. She turned her head weakly, not to see him, but to confirm. She remembered him, the human. He had been in her formation days ago when the joint forces clashed on this muddy wasteland. They had fought side by side before the collapse. They had never spoken. "You're alive," he whispered, voice rough, cracking under the storm. "Good," she blinked slowly. Her jaw trembled as she tried to speak, but only blood escaped her lips. He didn't flinch. Instead, he pulled a pouch from his belt, breaking open a sterile pack and wiping her mouth. She expected him to leave after confirming her state. That was the rule. Protocol said so. Even her own kind had followed it. Too much risk for one soldier, but he didn't leave. He pulled a makeshift stretcher from his back, stripped it down, and laid it beside her. "I'm going to get you out of here," he said simply. Shiraya stared at him through cloudy vision. Why? Her mind shouted the question, though her mouth couldn't form the words. She was nothing to him, a wounded alien, a lost cause, a burden that would likely get him killed. His hands were gentle, careful as he checked the seals on her torn armor, making sure no infection leaked in. Then he lifted her, cradling her like a wounded child, placing her on the stretcher. The pain was unbearable. She bit her lip until it bled. As he strapped her down, she noticed something strange about him. Not just his actions, but him. There was a presence in the way he moved. Not just strength, but calmness. Stillness, like the storm couldn't touch him. His mind didn't panic, didn't rush. Even as plasma fire cracked in the distance, even as death whispered around them, he never stopped breathing steady. He looked like a man who had seen too much, and somehow decided to stay kind. A sudden sound cracked from the ridge, a mechanical groan. Not friendly. His head jerked up. From behind twisted wreckage, 3 enemy scouts emerged. The same faction that had crippled Shiraya. Their eyes glowed blue, scanning. The human didn't hesitate. With one hand, he pulled a small beacon from his belt and shoved it into Shiraya's palm. "Hold this tight. Don't let go, no matter what." She wanted to scream, to protest, to tell him not to do it. But all she could do was watch as he rose, turned toward the threat, and ran into the smoke with nothing but a combat knife and a sidearm. No orders. No backup. Just a human choosing to protect what others had thrown away. And in that moment, Shiraya bloodied and broken, felt something strange crack open inside her, something between shame and awe. This human. He wasn't just different. He was dangerous in a way her people didn't understand. Was the kind who turned tides not with technology, not with orders, but with choice. Asterisk. The smoke clung to the trees like ghost hands. Each breath Shariah took felt like it was filtered through sand and fire. Her vision pulsed in and out, her body jolting with every step the stretcher hit. It wasn't much, just a dragged sled now, but even in her pain, she realized the human had come back. He'd fought them off. She hadn't seen how. Only heard the bursts of energy fire, the sharp metallic shrieks, and then silence. A silence so sudden it felt unnatural. And then his voice again, quiet and short. 3 down, he had muttered. I'm getting us out. Now he pulled her. Through a dead forest, scorched trunks twisted like bones. The mud was thick and pulled at his boots like it wanted to keep them both. Her stretcher dragged behind him, tethered by old cables tied to his vest. It looked makeshift, but it worked. Shariah couldn't understand why he hadn't left her. Logic said he should have. She was slowing him down. His face was pale with exhaustion, lips cracked, sweat bleeding through every seam of his armor. Yet, he kept moving. Who are you? She thought. Why are you doing this? The beacon in her hand pulsed faintly, a single soft light, an emergency signal on a private military band. He must have changed the frequency, bypassing command. Her people would not answer. But maybe his would, or maybe no one would. The silence. Between them broke when he spoke. Name's Grant, he said, still pulling her, eyes forward. You probably don't care, but I figured I should say it. In case you're still in there. Shariah blinked slowly. Her throat ached. The inside of her mouth was dry like dust. He glanced back. You awake? She blinked again. Good. Keep holding on. They came to a shallow ravine. Fire had scorched most of the ground, leaving only burnt roots and splintered bones. Charred armor fragments poked from the mud. Grant paused there. Shariah watched him lower his head not in fear, but in respect. He whispered something she couldn't hear. Maybe a prayer. Maybe a name. Then he crouched, pulled a power cell from one of the enemy corpses, and shoved it into his belt pouch. Not proud, he muttered, but you do what you gotta. The sky above turned a deeper gray, a low growl rumbling behind the clouds. A storm. Real this time, not the chemical fogs from the battlefield, but a planet-borne surge. Their time was running out. Grant crouched beside Shariah. We need cover, his voice had changed. It wasn't just tired anymore, it was heavy, like something had shifted in him since he left her that first time. Something she couldn't read. Humans were already strange to her species, too emotional, too reckless, but this one. He didn't match even their profiles. He pulled her off the sled and carried her under a crumbled transport husk nearby. Once inside, he found old metal beams and used them to barricade the entrance. The wind howled louder now. Lightning flashed across the alien sky in twisted spirals. Shariah tried to speak. All that came was a soft grunt. He turned quickly. You okay? She nodded, barely. Grant smiled, tired but real. You're tougher than half the guys in my unit, maybe more. She wanted to ask him why he saved her. Why risk his life for an alien? But even if she could speak, she didn't know if she was ready for the answer. He sat beside her. The wind screamed. Somewhere outside, debris was flying. He whispered again, as if forgetting she could hear. You weren't supposed to be there, he said. You were already marked. Command said leave the injured. Especially aliens. Waste of resources. His hands curled into fists. I didn't care. Shariah's eyes widened. He looked at her. I've seen what your people say about us. What? Ours say about you. But that day, when we were pinned and you took a hit for me, you didn't have to. We weren't even allies yet. You just did it. So that was it. She had saved him. And he had remembered. His voice dropped lower. I owe you, but it's not just that. I don't leave people behind. Not anymore. She wanted to ask what he meant. Wanted to know what had happened before. Before her body failed. Before the world tilted. Before the pain took her again. She heard his last words for the night, barely a whisper beneath the storm. We're not so different, you and me. They just trained us to believe we were. Shariah closed her eyes, for the first time since she lost her legs. She didn't feel like a burden. She felt human. Lightning cracked against the sky like the planet itself was tearing open. Metal screamed as wind ripped over the old transport hull they hid inside. Inside the wreck, Shariah lay still, her body wrapped in field blankets Grant had stitched together. From emergency kits. Even then, the cold bit through like teeth. Her bones ached, and her skin burned with fever. Infection was coming. Fast. Grant knew it. He crouched over a salvaged medkit, hands shaking as he loaded a cartridge of antibiotics, human grade. Probably useless for her species, but it was all he had. He looked over at her face, now pale and drawn tight with pain. I don't know if this'll work, he muttered, more to himself than her, but if we do nothing, you won't make it till sunrise. He wiped sweat from his brow, then leaned close. It's going to hurt. He pushed the injector against the side of her neck. A hiss, a sharp pulse. Her eyes snapped open with a jolt of pain, but she didn't scream. She just stared at him, breathing hard, her chest rising unevenly beneath layers of torn armor and thermal cloth. Grant sat back, his shoulders sagging. You're tough as hell, he whispered. The storm began to fade outside, softer now. Not gone but distant. In the quiet that followed, the two warriors sat in broken silence. Time passed slowly, marked only by the drip of rain through the cracked ceiling and the soft hum of Shariah's beacon still blinking, still unanswered. Finally, Shariah's voice came, hoarse, broken, but clear enough. Why? Really? Grant turned. Why what? Why save me? Grant looked down at his hands. They were calloused, bloody, shaking slightly. Because I was like you once, he said softly. Used, left behind. Shariah's eyes narrowed. By humans? He shook his head. By war. He leaned against the hull wall, pulling his knees. Up, first mission, we landed on a civilian outpost. Thought it was just recon, no resistance. Command said go in, assess, get out. But it was a trap, ambush, drones everywhere. We lost half our squad in 10 minutes. He took a breath. His voice shook now. When extraction came, they said there was no room for the wounded. I had 2 friends bleeding out, begging. They left them, just like that. Shariah felt a twist in her chest. Something that wasn't pain. Something that hurt more. After that, he said, I made myself a rule. Never again. He looked up, his eyes locked on hers. You didn't leave me when the ridge fell. So I'm not leaving you. The words hit her harder than any weapon. Shariah had trained all her life to be a warrior. Her people believed in strength, in silence, in honor earned through obedience. But now, lying broken in a ruined world, it was not her own kind who showed. Her what honor truly meant. It was him. A quiet human, full of ghosts. Refusing to walk away. Suddenly, the beacon chirped one long tone. Grant snapped to attention. He pulled it from her grip. Someone's close, not ours though. His voice went sharp, alert. He grabbed his rifle and scanned the outside. Stay quiet, he whispered. Don't move, I'll handle it. He slipped outside like a shadow. Shariah, single quotes, S heart pounded. Her limbs were dead weight, but her instinct screamed. Someone was out there, and Grant. He was walking straight into it alone, through the broken frame of the hull. She saw them, figures in black-gray armor, moving silently through the smoke. Not human. Not hers. Scavengers, raiders, mercenaries. They hunted the fallen and looted tech from the dead. They were armed. And they had spotted him. He didn't run. Grant stepped into the open, hands raised. "Don't want trouble," he called. "Out. Just need safe passage." The leader of the pack, a tall alien with blades on both arms, laughed. "You're in no position to bargain, human." Grant dropped the bag from his back. "It's yours. Just let us go." The mercenary stepped closer, looking past him toward the shelter. "Us?" Grant's eyes didn't flinch. "You don't want to go in there." "Oh? Why not?" Grant didn't answer. The mercenary raised his blade. No witnesses. Shuraya knew what came next would kill him, but Grant moved first. In one breath. One blink, one blur, he exploded forward, not like a soldier. Like something else. Like he wasn't bound by pain or fear. In a flash, he grabbed the mercenary's wrist, twisted, and slammed him into the ground with a force no human should have. The others opened fire. Grant spun behind cover, his sidearm already out. He shot once, twice, perfect aim. One down. Two. Down. Shiraya could only stare. He wasn't just trained. He was built for this. And she realized in that moment he wasn't normal. Not entirely. The way he moved, the way he reacted. There was something else inside him. Something powerful. Something hidden. She whispered into the silence. "What are you, Grant?" He didn't answer. He just kept fighting for her. Asterisk. The firefight ended fast. Too fast. Silence returned, but it wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, the kind that crawled into your ears and whispered that something was wrong. Shiraya stared through the cracked hull wall, her vision swimming from fever and blood loss. Then she saw him. Grant stepped out of the smoke, his armor scorched, face bruised, a long cut across his left cheek. He dragged one of the mercenary bodies behind him, dropped it without a word. His chest heaved, not just from effort, but from something deeper. Anger, guilt, restraint. Shiraya tried to speak. Only a croak escaped. He looked at her and forced a fast smile. Still breathing. That's something. She gave a weak nod. Grant knelt beside her, pulled open a small ration pack, and carefully spooned a bit of liquid near her lips. "Just sips," he said. "This'll keep your strength up." She drank. Barely. "They were watching the beacon," he said quietly. "Must have picked it up. Scavengers. They don't respond. They wait." Shiraya tried to form words. "You fought them alone." Grant shrugged. "Wasn't the first time." "You moved like them." He paused. His hand, which had been steady a moment ago, now trembled slightly. He set the spoon down, stood up, and walked a few paces away. "There's a reason for that," he said, not turning back. "But it's not something I usually talk about." Shiraya's breath came rough. "Then talk." Grant laughed, soft and bitter. "You aliens." Always blunt. He sat down against the hull wall, finally looking at her. "You ever heard of the Hellgate units?" He asked. She blinked. Once, slowly. Everyone had. They were human special forces, rumored to be so dangerous that even allied species feared them. Half myth, half horror story. They didn't follow orders, they ended wars. Shiraya's voice was hoarse. "You were one?" Grant didn't nod. He didn't need to. "We weren't supposed to exist," he said. "But in the early days of the Galactic War, when humans were still trying to prove we belonged, they made us. Enhanced training, neuropattern conditioning, deep tech implants. They tore us down and built us back." He held up his hand and clenched it into a fist. I was 19. The fire in his eyes flickered. Not pride, not glory. Regret. Double quotes. First mission, he continued, wasn't even combat, just cleanup, a colony gone rogue. But we saw things there, things that never made it into reports. And we did things, not because we wanted to, because they said we had to. Shariah swallowed, her throat dry. We were weapons, he said, until we weren't useful anymore. His voice dropped to a whisper, then they buried us. She understood now his strength, his silence, the way he watched every shadow. Not just a soldier, not just a Marine. A ghost from a forgotten chapter of human war. So when the order came to abandon the wounded, Grant said, I knew exactly what that meant. Not mercy, not protocol. Just silence, again. He looked at her and his voice cracked slightly. But not you, not this time. Shariah turned her head, her eyes shining despite the pain. You should have left me. I know, he whispered. But I didn't. Light flickered through the cracks in the hull. The storm had passed. The mud outside shimmered under the first weak light of dawn. Something about that soft gray glow felt unreal, like the planet had taken a deep breath. Then a low beep sounded. Grant's head snapped toward the beacon. A new signal, clear, steady. Rescue? Shariah asked, barely above a whisper. He checked the interface. It's human command, he said. They got my signal. Shariah's eyes fluttered. Relief and fear mixed. They'll come? Grant's jaw tightened. They'll come. But if they see you, wounded, alien, unauthorized evac, they might not bring you with them. Shariah didn't answer. She already knew. Her people had abandoned her. His might do the same. Grant stared at the beacon, his fingers hovering over the frequency controls. I can disable the signal, he said. We find our own way, or you let them take you, she said. Without me. The silence that followed was long. Then Grant stood up. Walked to the beacon and smashed it with the butt of his rifle. The light blinked once, then went out. Shariah stared in stunned silence. He turned to her, calm and sure. I'm not leaving you, he said. We find another way. She wanted to protest. But all she could do was whisper two words. Thank you. He nodded once. You're not a burden, he said. You're my reason. As the sun broke weakly over the horizon, painting the ruined world in pale silver, two warriors, one broken, one haunted, prepared to move again. Not to survive. To defy everything that had tried to erase them. Asterisk. The sun was a cold thing on this planet. Pale, thin, and distant, as if the sky itself was ashamed of its own light. Grant squinted against the haze. Every breath filled his lungs with soot and smoke. His back burned with effort, muscles screaming with each step as he dragged the sled through uneven, torn terrain. Shariah was tied down securely, wrapped in thermal blankets. Her eyes half-lidded but alert. They had traveled nearly 2 clicks since Grant destroyed the beacon, and now they were alone. No help. No comms. No backup. Just a haunted human and a half-dying alien warrior pushing forward through the skeleton of war. Up ahead, Grant whispered, pointing toward a blackened ridge. I saw a comms relay tower before the storm hit. If we can reach it, maybe we can call for a neutral pickup. Someone who won't ask too many questions. Shariah's voice was faint. Mercenary line? Maybe, he said. Or one of the old black market medevac runners. They still hover around dead zones like this. Shariah turned her head, eyes narrowing. And if they shoot us on sight? Grant chuckled dryly. Then we shoot first. She wanted to laugh, but her ribs still ached. As they moved on, the terrain shifted beneath them. The mud turned to cracked stone, scorched and brittle. Ruins of old bunkers jutted from the earth like broken teeth. The air grew colder, sharper, and with it came the memories unspoken but shared between them. Shariah whispered after a long silence. You've killed more than mercenaries. Grant didn't answer right away. He stopped at a dead tree stump, lowered the sled carefully, and sat beside her. The wind blew dust across the empty field beyond. Far in the distance, a small shape loomed, the relay tower. Yeah, he said finally. I've killed people who didn't deserve it. Shariah studied him. Were you ordered? At first, he said. Then. I stopped asking. She didn't flinch, because she understood war did that. It made monsters out of machines and machines out of men. He picked up a jagged rock and rolled it between his fingers. Do you know what scared me the most? She waited. It wasn't the killing, he whispered. It was how easy it became. His hand clenched around the stone until his knuckles went white. I was fast, efficient. The higher-ups praised me. But inside, I knew I was losing something. Each mission took a piece of me. And one day, I looked in the mirror and didn't see a man, just a weapon. Shariah blinked. Her voice was softer than before. And now? Grant looked up, met her gaze. Now I see someone worth saving, even if that someone isn't me. The words wrapped around her like a quiet storm. She had been seen as a weapon to her entire life. Her culture had praised sacrifice, discipline, silence. Even her parents had called her useful before they ever called her Dot now. As broken as she was, Grant spoke to her like she mattered, not because of what she could do, but because of who she was. We keep going, Grant said, standing. The relay's maybe 1 hour out. You with me? She nodded. Always. As they approached the tower, something felt wrong. Not in the air, but in the ground. Grant felt at first, his boots crunching on dust that wasn't dust. It was bone, shards, old, forgotten. Beneath it, strange tech pulsed faintly thin wires, stretching from the tower base into the cracked soil. This place wasn't just a relay, he murmured. It was a black site. Shariah's eyes narrowed. Human? No, Grant said. Not hours older, alien. He moved cautiously, stepping. Over debris. A door stood half buried under rocks at the base of the tower. The markings weren't any language he knew, but Shariah's breath caught when she saw them. It's a mind chamber, she whispered. Grant froze. What? A memory archive, forbidden. Used by an ancient caste before the war. They'd store emotion, thoughts, echoes of pain, of power. He stepped back. You mean if we open that ... it will show us what was left behind. Grant looked down at her. Do we risk it? She held his gaze, steady and sure. We already did. He pulled the rocks away. The door hissed open, old tech coming to life with a low hum. Inside, a pale glow pulsed softly in the dark. Like a heartbeat. As Grant stepped inside, he felt something crawl up his spine. Not a sound, a feeling, his past. Shariah's wounds. Everything they tried to bury. The chamber would not let it stay buried. The air inside the chamber wasn't like the outside. It wasn't air at all. It was memory. Thick, heavy, electric. The moment Grant stepped inside, the temperature dropped, but sweat still clung to his skin. Shariah lay just outside the threshold. The stretcher pulled close behind him. Her eyes widened as she saw him slow, his head tilting slightly like he was listening to something that wasn't there. Grant? She called. His voice came back distant. I hear them. Who? He didn't answer. The pale glow at the center of the room wasn't from a light. It pulsed from a tall crystal column floating inches above the ground, surrounded by strands of silver wire that danced in the air like tendrils. Alien script shimmered faintly on the wall, symbols too old to translate. Grant stepped closer. Then the glow touched him. He didn't scream, didn't collapse. Just froze. Shariah reached weakly toward him. Grant. But his body remained still. While his mind dropped into something else, he was 12 again, not in memory but in sensation. The weight of the training boots. The sting of winter wind cutting through synthetic skin. Voices barking orders through steel walls. Human voices, cold and cruel, teaching boys how to stop feeling, how to shoot without blinking. You're not. Soldiers, one instructor had shouted. Your weapons. Act like it. He remembered the day they made him choose. 3 targets. 1 civilian, 2 armed. No time, no guidance. Just a blinking light that meant choose or die. He chose wrong, not because of aim, because he hesitated, and they punished him. For weeks, the memory bled forward. Sharper now, operations, missions, silence after silence, until one day. He'd stopped thinking of himself as human, until that. Ridge, until Shariah. His eyes opened with a gasp. He staggered back from the column, his breathing ragged. Shariah watched, fear in her eyes. What did you see? She asked. He wiped his mouth. His hand came away red. Everything, he whispered, and not just mine. Shariah's pulse quickened. The column pulsed again. But this time her, and she, was pulled in. She was 7 cycles old. Kneeling in the warrior's temple, her tiny frame wrapped in ceremonial cloth. She wasn't crying. She had learned not to. Her mother had offered her a final glance from the shadows, a glance that said, "Don't embarrass me." They marked her that day, pressed the blade to her back, told her she belonged to the Empire now. No identity, no dreams, only service. She had fought to make them proud, but they never came back. Shariah's body twitched once. Her eyes fluttered. When she woke, tears lined her face. "It showed me," she whispered. "What I tried to forget," Grant nodded. "That's what it does. It doesn't just record history, it pulls it forward." A voice echoed in the chamber, then not sound, but something deeper. Something that filled their minds without asking. Permission. You carry what your kind fears. Pain, regret, mercy. Love. The column flickered. You are different. Not because of your past, but because you remember it. You carry the fire of change. Zyria clutched her blanket. Who are you? No answer. Only one more pulse. Then the walls of the chamber began to shift. A panel slid open on the far side, revealing a black console, still active. Alien code flickered across it, and at its base an emergency evac transponder. Old, but still working. Grant moved toward it. This could call a diplomatic runner. Shariah frowned. You trust it? He looked back at her. Double quotes. No, but I trust us. He pressed the activation crystal. The signal pulsed into the sky, silent and invisible to any standard channel. As the console powered down, a final line of text shimmered across the wall. Your stories are not broken. They are only beginning. They both stared at it. Zyria whispered, Was this place waiting for someone like us? Grant looked down at her. Maybe it was. The two stepped back into the light outside. The storm had cleared. Birds, real birds, circled high above. As if untouched by the war. The beacon signal blinked once every few seconds. They didn't know who would answer. They didn't know how long they had. But now, neither of them felt lost. For the first time in years, both carried the same thing, hope. The sun was higher now, climbing slowly through the smoke-stained sky. The winds had softened. The world, for once, was quiet. Grant crouched beside Shariah, checking her pulse, adjusting the makeshift wrappings around what remained of her legs. Her fever had gone down, just a little. The medicine had done something. Not enough, but enough to give her a chance. She was awake, alert. Her eyes followed him now with clarity. Not just pain. You're still with me, he said, his voice low. She gave a small nod. You were right. About what? I'm not a burden. Grant smiled. Then the beacon chimed. Not a soft pulse. A sharp, distinct tone. He turned quickly. Shiraya stiffened. It was the evac transponder from the memory chamber, its light blinking in a steady rhythm. Not searching anymore. Responding. He rushed over, scanning the interface. Alien symbols glowed across the screen. Not hers, not his. But he recognized the pattern. Someone was on the other end. Someone coming. Shiraya spoke quietly. Who is it? Grant tapped a few keys. Don't know yet. Signals encrypted. Old tech. Civilian runner, maybe black market. But someone heard us. He looked out across the cracked horizon, and they're close. Shiraya stared at the sky. You think they'll help us? Grant exhaled. I think they'll try. An hour passed. Then something moved in the sky, small at first. A speck. Then growing. A ship. Triangular, fast, not marked by any military faction. It came in low, its anti-grav drives humming softly, dust swirling in rings beneath it. Grant lifted Shiraya gently in his arms and carried her to the open field. The ship hovered a few meters away, landing struts extending. The hatch hissed open. 2 figures stepped out, human, armored, but their gear was old, patched, not official. Mercenaries, maybe ex-soldiers like Grant. The lead figure held up a hand. Identify yourself. Grant didn't hesitate. Grant. Former unit Echo Black. Priority evac for wounded. The man's eyes narrowed. You activated an ancient relay. We had no choice. His gaze shifted to Shiraya. She's not human. Grant stood straighter. She's mine. I'm not going without her. The silence hung like a blade. Then the second figure, female, older, stepped forward. Her voice was softer. We don't leave people behind. Not anymore. Grant almost laughed. They helped lift Shiraya aboard, careful and precise. Inside, the ship was small but clean. Real measure, real warmth. Not war. As Shiraya was stabilized in a med chair, she reached out weakly and took Grant's wrist. You did it, she whispered. Grant shook his head. We did it. Hours passed. When Shiraya finally slept, the older woman approached Grant. What really happened down there? Grant looked at her, eyes tired but calm. We remembered who we are. Both of us. That's all. And what are you? He thought for a long time before answering. Not weapons. Just people. Just survivors. Just two souls who found each other. When no one else stayed, the ship rose, breaking atmosphere, leaving the dead world behind. And somewhere deep inside them both, where old pain had lived for too long, something new had taken root. Peace.